Okay, let's get that in my pocket. So, enlightenment is not something that is achieved by sitting and listening to someone. Well, okay. It is never achieved by what you know. So knowledge, you gain insight, and it's your natural state, always. And the reason is it's not because it's light, like it is misinterpreted as by almost everybody, as in light, as in glowing white light. Enlightenment is your natural state, as in light, as in very light, like a helium balloon that drifts up infinitely into the sky. Because your natural state is enlightenment, because your natural state is completely light. Because you are, in essence, perfect light, as in perfect emptiness. And if you want to say that's not possible, doing laundry, just blowing some dust off so I can set things down. Had to hang up some clothes in a workshop because we accidentally washed clothes right before we were on our way rushing out to go to San Francisco for job stuff because we're moving there, so it's very exciting. But anyway, we had a bunch of wet clothes. It was either take them with us and dry them at the hotel laundry or hang them up in this giant workshop that I've built that's connected to the house. So anyway, I'm now folding all that laundry. Okay, so back to what I was saying. Everybody that I've ever met, it didn't matter who, so people pursuing spirituality, non-duality, anybody, doesn't matter, hates this message. I've met people who claim to be extremely spiritual, practice intensely, that hate this message. So I'm going to assume you're going to hate this message because I've shared this hundreds of times, 100 times, I don't know, a lot. Also made videos previously, and every single person hates it because, this is just my opinion here, because people think that enlightenment is achieved somehow by hearing the right thing, or maybe you're lessening your load or something. There's some sort of formula for becoming enlightened. There isn't. Your natural state is enlightenment, which means light. And perfect enlightenment means perfectly light. And perfectly light means perfectly empty. So how can you be perfectly light if you contain anything, if you're holding on to anything, if you're possessing anything, if you're owning anything? Then how can you be enlightened? Because enlightenment, absolute, perfect enlightenment, would obviously be to be absolutely, perfectly light. And to be absolutely and perfectly light is to be absolutely and perfectly empty. So if you claim that you know things, like I know this or that I learned from my spiritual teacher, then you're not light. You own knowledge. You're holding knowledge. You possess knowledge. You have ideas in your head that you believe are true. And if you'll notice, the world is filled with 7 billion people, or however many, who, to the last person, except for myself, and this is another thing, I'm not trying to be this way, and I'm not claiming that I'm special. This is just something that I've found. I'm the only person I've ever found that has this experience of being completely empty. And it's not that I'm trying to be empty, it's that it's obvious that I am. But the funny thing is it's obvious that every other person is as well. So it's not a special state for me. It's not like I'm saying I've achieved this or I am this, and you are this, and you can't achieve this. No, it's very subtle, the difference. But what I'm saying is that is my experience of what I am, and that is my experience of what everyone else is. So I keep it always with my experience, rather than saying I know. So every single thing that I'm saying here is what I call my experience. What is the me that the my, or the word my, is referring to? I don't know. But, okay, going upstairs, bringing folded laundry up, some Bill Evans playing. I love Bill Evans, Miles Davis, John Coltrane. Okay, so my experience of all people is that they're just like me, exactly the same. And in fact, it really goes beyond that in a sense, everybody is me. But I don't know how that actually works, because I'm not holding knowledge. I'm empty. So, enlightened. But not in the I've achieved enlightenment, I'm special, I'm a guru type of way, but as in there's nothing inside of me. But it's not that I'm making this claim as though it's an achievement. I'm just simply reporting what I'm finding. I don't find anything within myself, but I say that it's not special. Putting away my wife's scrubs. She's a nurse. She just got the most amazing job in San Francisco. So, I say I'm enlightened only in the sense that I'm light, in that I'm empty. I can't find anything inside of myself. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't have experiences and get frustrated and get sad and get mad and everything, because somehow being in this reality, whatever this reality is, it generates those sorts of experiences. It just does. So, anyway, so here's the interesting thing about this. So, is there a path to enlightenment? This is real interesting, because look at it like this. And again, I'm just sharing my experience, but I think this is valuable to anyone who is willing to actually take this to heart and practice this, because it worked for me. And that sounds strange, because I'm saying there's no such thing as enlightenment, there's no such thing as a process, there's no such thing as knowledge that you will get in order to become empty, because you always are empty. But I can tell you that, so one peculiarity about me is from the very beginning of this life that I'm living, I've never been able to hold belief systems about anything. Even if I'm a human, or what the world is, or what life, the meaning of life is, or anything. So I'm incapable of holding belief systems. And I watched a video the other day, a YouTube video, and it was actually a Christian guy debating a liberal guy, and the Christian guy said, they were talking about the belief system of Christianity, and he said, well, everybody has a belief system, right? And then the liberal guy agreed. Of course, everyone has a belief system. And I thought, well, that's interesting, because I don't have any that I know of. Now, maybe I have a belief system that I'm human, and I can't detect it. And maybe that's what allows me to, or kind of forces me into this, or whatever that process is, to experience being human. I must believe it in some way, potentially. But if you ask me, am I a human on Earth, I would say, well, there is an experience of being a human on Earth, definitely. I mean, that's what I would call it, but is that actually what I am? I don't know. So if I don't even know what I am, and then the question is, well, or someone might say, well, you know that you are, you know that you exist. And my answer to that would be, well, I don't actually know that I exist. I have the experience of existing. But do I exist? I don't know. I have the experience of existing as being a point of consciousness that takes in information, processes information, experiences a self, like a physical body, that moves around and has all of the normal emotions, and except for owning belief systems. So is there, can you become enlightened? Well, so I don't know. That's an interesting question, because I will tell you that I always had the peculiarity of being incapable of holding and possessing belief systems. And I've never met anyone else who had that characteristic or attribute. So maybe if you don't have that similar attribute, then maybe you can't become enlightened. And not in the way like a guru and whoever, Krishnamurti and whatever. I looked into non-duality for a year and a half, and I studied all of the ancient and the new non-duality teachers. But here's the thing. So you are enlightened because what you are is perfectly light, perfectly empty. And the process most people use to try to become enlightened, and I've just seen it so much that it's obvious that that's what people do, is to acquire teachings in order to become enlightened. You can't acquire anything in order to become enlightened. You actually are enlightened. So, but that's not to say that I didn't actually go through a process. There was a time when it's like slowly but surely the shell has opened up and fallen off of me, but I'm still a person. And so 20 years ago, this was not as clear to me at all. But I always had this peculiar experience of not owning any belief systems and not knowing what I was and not knowing what the world was and having this empty experience. And so I was drawn to non-duality, and the only reason is non-dual teachers were talking similar to the way that I experienced reality. And so I drilled through one after the other, and actually I had a business in my house, and I would listen to these non-dual teachers, Tony Parsons, Carl Rentz, Richard Sylvester, and then some of the older teachings and Buddhism and just all kinds of stuff. But I would listen to these audios on YouTube for literally 12 hours a day because it was the only place that I could find people that were talking similar to what my experience was. It seemed like everyone else in the world they all have belief systems. They all know their people. They all know that they're this or that. And it's strange when you don't have that, and you are the only person that doesn't have that. Only person that I've ever found. So everyone else owns belief systems and has knowledge and knows things and knows what's right and wrong, or this is true or that's not true. And so going through non-duality, trying to find someone who was having a similar experience to me, and then eventually realizing that none of them actually were. That it was all belief systems and knowledge, but kind of talking in a similar way to my experience. But it actually, through listening to all of that and going through that, I guess I was disillusioned. I finally realized that there wasn't anybody else who was having the experience I was having, and that was just the way it was. I don't know why that's happening. I don't know. I have no idea. But so every single person that will hear this will hate it. Every single person, guaranteed. Because every single person is looking for knowledge or a path or a route or a process in order to get what they want. When what you actually are, and this is just my experience, and I'm saying that because that's what I actually am, and I experience everyone else to be that, is what you actually are is enlightened, so perfectly light, perfectly empty, and there's no change in that. You're just always that. So there's, in a sense, you could say there are two beings, there's a being, which is what you are, and then there's the alter ego, the pseudo-me, which is the thing that grows and changes and transforms and over time becomes more aware of things and learns lessons. And what people try to do is they try to get that character that is in the this like linear movement, this path of learning and acquiring and changing, moving, trying to get that character to wake up. When in fact, that character's always just a character. It's always going to be just that. It's just what it is until, like for me, this character that's here is very thin. It's very one-dimensional. And when this life ends, that character will end, but what I am, whatever it is, I'm assuming will continue because, and again, I don't know that it will continue because I don't possess knowledge. So I'm empty. But here's the thing about that emptiness. That emptiness, you could say, and this is what you are too. This is the interesting thing about it. And this, it's because it's supernatural. It's paranormal. It's you. There is no way to put into words what you are, and there's no way to get to it or unveil it from beneath layers of the thoughts and the beliefs and the events of your life. There's no way to unveil it. It is, so it's, you are and I am, we're perfect emptiness. Perfect emptiness. And so the character, every single character I've ever met, when I say that, it is obvious that that is the most threatening statement that can be made. To claim that I'm empty. How dare you claim that I am empty? Because the character measures itself by its mass, by what it believes, the knowledge it owns, the houses, the cars, the education, the spiritual transformation, whatever it is. And when I say you're empty, it is offensive. There's nothing more offensive to it. Nothing. But here's the thing about that emptiness that you are and I am and everyone is that emptiness is actually, I like to call it, of course I'm going to use words from all the spiritual stuff I've listened to in the world, so of course I'm going to, right? I mean, that's how you communicate in this world. So we are perfect emptiness, but that perfect emptiness is actually the womb of creation. So it is where everything arises. So everything that is arises within you and within me. But there is no you and me. It's within what we are. It's metaphysical. It cannot be understood. I've lived with this long enough to know there's no possible way that it can be understood because it is not like in the world you have polarity. So you have right and wrong, hot and cold, left and right. And so you can make sense of things. You can understand things. But what we are is metaphysical. So it is, because it is the potential for everything, it's left and right at the same time. It's hot and cold at the same time. And it's up and down at the same time. And also at the same time, it's neither up nor down, and it's neither hot nor cold, and it's neither left nor right. So it's none of those things, and it's all of those things. And that's what you are. So, and that's what I am. And so the world is a strange place for me. It just is. Imagine being somewhere where you're the only person who experiences reality in the way you experience it, without belief systems, without knowing anything. And that in that there is, it is what I would call bliss. Using, again, words, or it is blissful, it is peaceful, it is amazing, it is something that is so far beyond explanation to not possess anything. But it's not that I don't possess anything and you do, it's that I don't possess anything and neither does anyone else, but everybody else thinks they do. It's the only difference. that I see. And so this empty state, and this is the really interesting thing the world has insisted and tried every possible maneuver to beat this out of me my entire life. And for a long time, I found it. At first, I didn't recognize it because I literally, people, when I say this, they say they don't believe what I'm saying. First of all, secondly, if you are telling the truth and you believe it, then there's something psychologically wrong with you, or you're lying. You're not telling the truth about your experience. And I've had a string of people close to me, family, who have actually fabricated characteristics for me, attributes for me that I don't have. Because they assumed, I can only guess, that I was lying about this experience. So they've told me that I'm resentful about the past, or angry, or manipulative, or a liar, or controlling, and all these really interesting things, which in fact is strange because all of these people who've done this to me are extremely resentful about their past. None of them have empowering, long-lasting, intimate relationships. And they kind of projected this on me. And so for a long time, like I said, at first I didn't recognize it, and then I started realizing, wow, people are saying a lot of things about me that aren't true. And then I asked people to stop, and even my wife, which we've been together since 25 years. So even my wife said, yeah, none of this is true. This is really interesting. People kind of make up all these things about you. And it's very strange because I think what it is I'm just like a blank canvas. And it's easy to project things onto me. And I think people do it all the time with each other. I used to think I was being singled out, honestly. And then as this life has moved along, more and more the thinker, the analyzer, has kind of dropped away, and what I am has kind of risen into the foreground, which makes me think that this can happen for other people too. So, and again, I'm not saying I'm special. I don't know what I am. I don't know why this is happening. It all seems to be out of my control. Like I'm a leaf on a creek flowing down around the rocks and just flowing and moving, and things are happening. And so not out of control like in the negative way, but out of control as in just kind of drifting peacefully along, not resisting what happens. But, so I think this could happen for anybody. Maybe. I don't know. I really don't know. But, so, yeah, I used to, as I started to realize all these lies were being told about me, and this was a process of realizing this and then saying no to this that went over many years. In the beginning of realizing this, I thought, my God, this is just happening to me. And then what I started to realize is that people do this to each other all over the place. But because people have a strong sense of self, a strong belief system, and strong values, things that they find important, so they have a story about themselves. You know, like it's a character you can... for most people, they could write down their attributes and their beliefs and their story and their values, and there would be a whole group of things that makes them them. And so when someone else tries to project things onto them, then they meet a wall of what they have projected onto themselves. And so for most people, this game of this kind of trying to push things onto other people and then resisting and then pushing back onto someone else, that's just normal life. When people run into me, I don't have all of that stuff I've projected onto myself. I'm just like, I don't know why I don't, I just don't. So I'm just like an empty, blank screen, which, like I said, I feel like everybody is. And so it's easy to project this stuff all over me. And like I said, initially I took it personally. or not personally, that's the wrong word, but in a sense, I thought, this is being projected at me. What is going on here? This is very strange. But then I started to see exactly what I just told you. So this is something that goes on everywhere. So I will wrap up by saying this, that based on my past experience of sharing this will be met with 100% resistance. That's fine. So I'm going to have this video up on YouTube. I'm not going to respond to comments. I will leave comments up. People can comment all they want. I'm never going to respond to a comment. I'm just not going to do it. Because there's no point. I went through this before, and nothing happens out of it. It's just people trying to talk me out of what I'm explaining here. So you can, if you want to talk me out of it, what you can do is just, tell yourself, this guy's full of shit. What he's saying is untrue, and he's either psychologically ill, he doesn't understand himself, he's lying, he's trying to deceive people, whatever. Pick any of those things, and then if you want to believe that, that's fine. So, and you can even tell me in the comments, and I might read them occasionally, and, have those opinions. People have opinions. I mean, we have, 7+ billion people on this planet. Every single person has a unique belief system that they think is right. And they don't realize that there are 7 billion other people who think the same thing. And so, that's fine. The point of this is that I don't know that there's a point. I just want to do this. So I've done a bunch of other stuff on YouTube, and I have like a ceramics business that I run, trying to restart as we move to San Francisco. But I just want to do this because I just want to leave this for a record of my experience. Not that it's anything special, but it's peculiar. I mean, it just is. So I find no one else in the world that has this experience, and I find everyone in the world does not like what I'm sharing and will resist it and try to talk me out of it. And so for that reason, I want to share it, and I just want to leave it and for what it's worth. And again, enlightenment, what I see is that it's easy and simple and obvious to be what you are because you are what you are. But the alter ego, the pseudo-self, wants to become enlightened. And so it has a very complex system of trying to do this, and it's never worked. I spent years studying enlightened people and reading what they wrote, and like the Indian teachers from a long time ago, and everything I read, it all had knowledge and self and process, and it just, from my experience, enlightenment is perfect lightness. And you cannot be perfectly light unless you are perfectly empty. Because if you contain anything, that is weight. And that anything includes stuff you know. So, and let's see. Final, absolute final thing. Of course, you know things about the world. I'm standing in my kitchen right now. But that is a subjective knowing. In other words, I know that I'm having the experience of being in my kitchen, but what is the me that's in the kitchen? What is the body? Is it a soul? Am I a self? Is the kitchen actually real? Is it a hologram? Is it some sort of a dream that I'm having? What is it? I don't know. So ultimately, if I go down layer under one layer and then the next and the next and keep going down, I get to a place of emptiness, which is what I am and what you are. And I think that maybe it's possible that people who have belief systems, like you, because you do. Unless maybe you don't, but I mean, I've met 10,000 people in my life, and every single one of them had belief systems. So I'm assuming that you do. But maybe it's possible that people with belief systems can not shed, because you're never going to shed your belief systems, but that your, let's say, the consciousness, so consciousness I just use as the point from which you're referencing your experience, can shift from the pseudo-self, which has beliefs, to the emptiness that you are, which has nothing. But in effect, in a way, or actually I feel is, like I said, the womb of creation, the empty space in which everything arises. So that's the amazing part about it, is that you're everything and nothing at the exact same time, because you're perfect emptiness, but everything arises within you. And again, that's just my experience. I'm not saying that's true so that I have knowledge and I'm telling you this great knowledge. It's just my experience. But if you notice, people never speak from experience. They never say, this is my experience, and share it. They say, this is true, and that's true, and this is untrue. And in other words, people speak, and you do. I know you do. Everybody does. You speak from a position of, so such and such is true. Like, you could think, well, of course he's walking around in his kitchen, and of course he knows he's walking around in his kitchen, so you're telling me what's true for me. And what if the world was full of people who only spoke from their experience and didn't claim to know the truth? A truth which actually extended out from them to other people. So in other words, I know a truth which is not only my truth, but it's your truth. And it's the truth about the world. And it's the truth about reality. Imagine a world where people actually spoke from their experience and said, I know the truth is for me. That's all. And that's all I can share. And then I would like to know what the truth is for you. And then we're not pushing into each other and trying to control one another and trying to dominate one another and trying to actually have our belief system be the dominant superior belief system, which is what religions are, political systems. It's all about having your belief system. It's in this. They're all locked in battle, and they're trying to dominate and win and be the one belief system that is the truth, that emerges to the top and reigns supreme forever. And what I'm saying is that all of that happens within the womb of creation, which is what you are. And that womb of creation is perfect emptiness in which everything arises. So you are everything and nothing.